This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewald, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center, and I'm joined for the show, as usual, by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Hi, Maura.
Hello, Charlie.
Why, the viewers can look around and see that we have different surroundings. We have a brand new set. I left the studio and I came back, and what did you do, Maura?
Well, I think I've improved things. It looks beautiful in here, so this is exciting.
Well, it is quite a change. It is quite a change, and we owe the change to the good people at the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, and we appreciate all the support and assistance they've given us over the 10 years that we've been on the air.
This is great.
So, well, and we're going to launch it with, we're going to launch a new set with a set of new guests that we haven't had before. We have Robert Latham, who is the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Contractors. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Nice to be with you both.
Oh, thank you very much. And you brought along with you Mr. Jamie Van Buren. Jamie, you're chairman of the Highway Education Foundation here in Pennsylvania.
Yes, and it's nice to be here with you.
Well, transportation is an issue that just will not go away. Obviously, as Maura knows from working in state government as well as myself, that, goodness, Pennsylvania has, more miles of state roads than all of New England and New York and New Jersey combined. We have more bridges than any other state in the Union, and Pittsburgh, where Maura comes from, has more bridges than any other city. And, of course, we thought we had found the solution to funding our transportation needs under the Rendell administration with Act 44. And since we haven't been allowed to toll Route 80 across the northern tier of Pennsylvania, we've had to go back to square one, and we find that the Turnpike Commission is taking out bond after bond to try to support much of the rest of the state's transportation infrastructure, and it hasn't been fair to the Turnpike Commission, that's for sure. We need to find a solution. Folks on the Hill know it. The governor knows it. We seem to be on the cusp of having a new bill. Could you tell us a little bit about this, Bob?
Well, Charlie, the needs have been well documented over the past number of years. We've had two commissions that have looked at the total spending gap, or the total funding gap, I should say, for both highways, transit, and also multimodal. We have to keep in mind we're not just talking about public transit and highways here. We're talking about freight rail, pedestrian facilities, biking facilities, and our ports, our airports, et cetera. So to this, what we've been talking about, or what the solution that's been offered to this funding gap, is actually a comprehensive plan, so that it addresses the entire system. The needs gap is identified at $3.5 billion. The funding bill that's being looked at now by the General Assembly is about $2.5 billion. So while it's a great step forward, it doesn't even get to all of our needs. And one of the things that Jamie can bring into focus is some of the research that we've done, or that he's done with the Highway Education Foundation, in terms of what's important to people, what they're concerned with when they look at their transportation system.
The number one issue that people bring up time and again, it's probably 3 or 4 times higher rating of what people expect out of their system, and that is a safe highway, safe transportation system, whether they're on a transit bus or whether they're traveling on 80 or whether they're going over a local back road bridge. They expect the system to be safe. They expect when their children to get on a bus for it to be a safe experience for them. When parents get in the car, travel to grandma's house over back roads, hop on a highway and get off, they
over
expect
the river,
it to be a,
through the woods.
a safe experience. And PennDOT uses the resources that they have, as limited as they are, to try to do that first and foremost beyond doing anything else.
The thing about it is, as you mentioned, we have a large system. Well, if the resources aren't there to fund it, you can't shut it down. I mean, we've not heard any members of the General Assembly or the public come in and say, you know what, you need to close down about 10,000 miles of the highway system. They still want it open. They still want it operating. We have to provide the resources.
We know we keep hearing that we've been very fortunate that there have not been any significant bridge issues or bridges falling down so far, and that's really not true, is it?
No, it's not. We've had, back in the early part of the decade, we had a bridge collapse on I-70 in Washington County, and fortunately nobody was killed. There were some injuries there. So with the number of deficient bridges that we have, which is basically a rating where they're sort of on an alert list, we need to get at it. I mean, earlier this summer, the Department of Transportation had to go back and downgrade some of an additional 2,000 bridges, and that's because they've been able to kind of keep them open, thinking that there was a schedule of replacement, but with no prospect of funding ahead. They've had to go back and weight restrict a number of those bridges just in the to make sure that they're safe and make sure we don't have a situation like you mentioned on I-70.
Jamie, could you tell us a little bit about your organization? I think
Sure.
many of our viewers would be learning of your organization perhaps for the first time. Could you tell us a little bit about when it was set up and why it was set up and some of the things that you're doing and how you have joined with Bob's organization to work for a better system here in the Commonwealth?
Sure, I'd love to. We were set up 5 or 6 years ago as a 501c3 not-for-profit to do two things: to do research, basic research on how people feel about the transportation system, and then get out from an education standpoint and educate people on what is actually happening throughout the state to try to make people's dreams relative to transportation come true. And unfortunately, over the last 4 or 5 years, the story has been there is a need. There is a reason why people would like to spend their resources to have a safer system, to have one that brings better economic prosperity to the state. But unfortunately, the story has been the long-term comprehensive solution that people are willing to support just hasn't been able to get past the legislature. And that's really the story that our organization tells.
And we believe that passage is imminent, although it's always hard to tell. But we don't know the specifics of the legislation. And what happens this time of year is that everybody who wants something tries to put it into the legislation. So I know there are a lot of amendments out there. But what do you want to see as the main focus of what eventually passes?
We need to keep the legislation focused on raising enough revenue to be able to fund a safe transportation, intermodal transportation type system where we can hop in the car. If we're driving to the train station, get on the train, take it into wherever you're going to take it into, and have an experience that then's going to return you with 100% confidence that that's going to happen every day. And you need resources in order to do that. And they're just not there.
Charlie, you mentioned earlier the Act 44, and that was predicated on two things: the bond financing from the turnpike toll revenues, and then the potential for the same with toll revenues from Interstate 80.
Yes.
So what Jamie's getting at here is we need a solution that is going to have growth as you go into the out years, so that we don't continue to face this.
You want to go through this again?
Well, it's so much fun, but on the other hand, it doesn't make for good planning. For when you start to look at what a agency has to do to make sure that they're providing proper facilities and doing good rehabilitation and maintenance, it doesn't work that way when you have non-recurring funds.
Well, I want to follow up on that point with you, Bob. Being the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Contractors, you find that what role did your organization get to play in the construction of Act 44. What role did your organization, what role are you playing now in trying to help the legislature cobble together a better financing arrangement for the future? I imagine you've been right in the hurricane's eye on this thing.
Well, Act 44 was passed in 2007, and we didn't have much of a role in that. That was sort of a stopgap solution when the legislature couldn't come up with anything else. Since then, we started working with a plethora, I would say, of organizations that go beyond the contracting and engineering industry. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, you tend to do would tend to do the work, so that's why you support it. But we've been working with a diverse group known as the Keystone Transportation Funding Coalition, and that, you know, everything from local chambers of commerce to AARP, transit riders, bicyclists, multimodal organizations, comprehensive throughout the Commonwealth. And what we've done is we've helped craft this comprehensive plan, and that's what we keep talking about, the word comprehensive, but this is for all modes. It's ports, airports, bike facilities, pedestrian facilities, public transit and roads, and also our local roads. We've been talking about the state system being larger than the New England states. We have 70-some thousand miles of local roads that are maintained by townships and boroughs, and you know, if there can be greater funding for their budgets there, that can help with property taxes as well.
Mm-hmm. And our friend Dave Sanko from the Township Supervisors Association shares some of the concerns that the Township Supervisors
they're a member of the coalition as well.
About this as well. Mm-hmm. Jamie, your organization must have been concerned a little bit about, we talked about safety, and when we talk about safety, we tend to think of bridges and the safety and structural integrity of bridges. Sure. We find that the Commonwealth recently changed the weight restrictions on a number of bridges to try to, I guess, improve the longevity of them. Right. But how does that intersect? What effect does that have on safety on the roads?
Well, it makes the roads safer. Unfortunately, it doesn't do anything as far as economic development, where if a bridge can only handle 10 tons, because long-term that's where it needs to be, then the milk trucks or the fire engines or the emergency responders they wind up having a problem perhaps getting to somebody. And so
school
from a
buses
safety,
too.
I was just going to say
there is one have to go around.
Right.
There is one unintended consequence there that does make it less safe, and that is you're going to have longer school bus routes in some cases, and that's not anything that's desirable. I do know that in Chambersburg they've had a couple of school bus accidents on rural roads, and they're very much concerned in that school district with that situation. So these are unintended consequences of trying to stretch those dollars when it looks like there's no legislative solution on funding.
What is the long term? In the last 30 seconds, what is your long-term view of what's going to happen on the Hill? Jamie, you first, and then Bob, could you wrap us up with what do you think is going to come out of the discussions on the Hill? What do you hope, what do you expect to come?
What I hope is that the four caucus leaders and the governor can sit down and figure out how to put a bow around a long-term comprehensive funding solution so that we can have a safe, modern highway and local road, ports, transit, all integrated together so that the traveling public can have the safe experience that they want to have.
Yeah, I would agree with Jamie. It's got to be a long-term approach. It's got to be comprehensive. This will create safer travel, alternative transportation modes, so that there are walking facilities, there are biking facilities. We have to have a system that will promote economic development. I mean, look at our ports. Yes. We're dredging the port, but we don't have the cranes in order to lift the stuff off of there. So it has to be comprehensive, and that will create jobs in the manufacturing sector and across the economy.
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming here today, and we hope that you'll come back in the next month or two, because
Explain what happened.
Exactly.
That would be wonderful.
Something's going to happen very shortly, and we'll need to explain it to our viewers, so we would appreciate your expertise if you could come back and wrap up this tale of Pennsylvania transportation for us.
Nice being with you.
Nice
very
having
much
you
for
with
having
us.
us.
You're welcome. We'll be back with segment 2 of Behind the Headlines right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania Business Council, a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States. And by Penn Waste, your best local choice for your waste removal and recycling needs.
Penn Waste is proud to be a locally owned business. Since the company's founding in 2000, it has employed many of its neighbors as members of a dedicated team of professionals. Penn Waste is proud of its many contributions to the people of its service area through support of numerous community organizations such as Christmas Addicts and the Junior League of York. One more way they improve the quality of life where they live and work.
Hi, welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. In this segment, Maura and I are going to be talking about another major area of public policy concern for the Commonwealth. We've talked about transportation funding, infrastructure financing, and now, of course, one of the other areas that has been of concern, of course, always been of concern to Pennsylvania, is energy and having a secure energy supply and having an affordable energy supply. And we're bringing in one of the best people to talk about that. We're being joined by Jim Welty. Jim, you are the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Marcellus Shale Coalition. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Charlie. Good to be here.
So happy to have you back. It's been a while since we've had you here.
We've missed you.
We haven't. Welcome to our new set.
Yeah.
This is a great set. I like it.
We're very happy and very grateful to the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association for it. I don't know where to start out with you. Maybe you have some brand new news about a new president for the Marcellus Shale Coalition. Do you want to talk about that appointment a little bit?
We just the coalition just completed a 2-month search for a new president of the Marcellus Shale Coalition, and just today announced that our new president is Dave Spiegelmeyer, who is the former vice president of Chesapeake Energy for the Appalachian region. So a man with 30 years of experience in the industry, very well politically connected, knows the players both here in Harrisburg as well as D.C., but also knows the industry very well. So we're excited to have him as our new president and kicking off the next phase of our organization. Katie Klaber did a really nice job of building the foundation. Now, we're going to continue to build upon that and look to Dave's leadership to do that. Well,
it seems that he's coming in at a good time and a challenging time. It continues to be challenging for our Marcellus Shale, but there's a lot of great stuff happening across the state. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the positive impact that Marcellus Shale has had?
Absolutely.
Here.
This shale play really took off in 2008. And at that time, we were looking at gas prices of over $13. We started drilling throughout the Commonwealth. Within that time, within the last 5 years, what we've seen is Pennsylvania go, and the country, quite frankly, go from a net importer of energy to a net exporter of energy. And last year alone, we drilled numerous wells, producing it's $2.2 trillion or trillion MCF of gas in the Commonwealth, which is 10% of the nation's supply coming out of Pennsylvania. So the change from 2008 to today is significant, and the investments in Pennsylvania by these companies, the jobs created, which is over 232,000 jobs in Pennsylvania just by the drilling industry alone.
You want to repeat that statistics? What is that statistic?
232,000 jobs, both what we call core industry jobs, the actual drillers, the rigs, as well as ancillary industry jobs, and the engineers and the environmental firms that work on those. And the average core industry job, $89,000 a year. And of course, the average ancillary industry job, over $60,000 a year. So this is creating jobs and certainly wealth in Pennsylvania, and we're excited about that.
And does that include the trickle down to the communities and people working in the restaurants where they're eating and the new cars being purchased and all that? That's
a whole nother layer of it. Certainly what we call the Marcellus effect. And that is, you've got the drilling, and then you all have all the downstream effect of what's happening within the industry. I mean, you've got hotels that are just full because, as drilling rigs move around the state, the drilling employees move as well. So, it has certainly been a very positive to Pennsylvania. In Act 13 implemented the impact fee. And there's been over $400 million in impact fee generated throughout the Commonwealth. And those monies primarily go to the local communities. A lot of it goes to the local communities where the impact of drilling is felt.
Mm-hmm. Since you're the Vice President of Government Affairs, Jim, I was wondering if you could tell us what bills are currently being considered on Capitol Hill here in Harrisburg that affect your industry and it would affect the Commonwealth the most. Are there some points of concern to you and the coalition at this point? What should our viewers know about?
Great question, Charlie. And part of what we're dealing with here is the horizontal drilling, which is what this deep well drilling is, the unconventional well drilling as we call it, is relatively new to Pennsylvania. But let me say that drilling has been around for over 100 years in Pennsylvania. Gas well drilling has been around for decades in Pennsylvania, so this is not new. We've been fracking wells for 60 years. But there's been a lot of consternation and concern over what's going on within the industry. But I can tell you a lot of that has to do with the educational component that we need to do as an industry. So we're trying to do a lot to educate the public as well as the legislators on what really happens within the industry, what really happens with fracking. We're a safe industry. We're very conscientious about how we do the drilling. The employees within the Marcellus Shale Coalition companies live here, their families are here. They don't want to do anything to harm the environment. So some of the legislation we're facing probably deals with a lot of the misunderstanding of our industry. One of those is, we talked a little bit about the severance tax as one that's out there. We hear a lot of the Democratic gubernatorial candidates talking about the severance tax.
Now, our viewers, would you define the severance tax in this regard, in this how you're using it in this situation, Jim?
Yeah,
the severance tax is?
The severance tax is a concept that if you sever a mineral from the ground, that gets taxed at some rate. In Pennsylvania, through Act 13, we implemented the impact fee as an option to as a counter to the severance tax, or I shouldn't say we, the General Assembly did. So we pay the impact fee. The severance tax would be something that would be contemplated other than the impact fee.
In addition to the impact fee.
Yeah, many of the proposals exactly. Many of the proposals out there would be in addition to the impact fee, and that has our members concerned because it would simply double the cost of doing business in Pennsylvania.
Well, it seems like the issues on taxes and impact fees start to die down, and then all of a sudden they rear their ugly head again with some of the gubernatorial candidates. What is the Marcellus Shale industry going to do to combat these proposals that are out there?
Yeah, look, this is a competitive play. As I said, things were different in 2008 with gas prices at $13, above $13. Gas prices now are below $4. At the same time, over the last 5 years, we've seen more competitive plays come into existence throughout not just the country, but throughout the globe. You think of the Eagle Ford, you think of the Haynesville, Texas, Louisiana, Colorado, North Dakota are all plays that are out there that are competing for capital. And then you factor in Russia, Europe, Africa. There's a lot of natural gas plays there. So these companies are trying to make a decision as to where they're going to locate capital. So the more messages that go out there from our public policymakers and candidates that suggest that they're going to tax our industry, it gives pause to locating capital in Pennsylvania.
Which means loss of jobs and loss of revenue for the state in the long run. Is that
Absolutely.
true? Okay.
We hear of more and more drilling and more oil being discovered and gas being discovered, of course, in Montana, in the Dakotas, and in Texas. And it seems pretty much as if the Dakotas, Montana, and Texas have been economically renewed by the activity there. Not only Williamsport, Pennsylvania, but in the Midwest and in the Southwest as well.
One of the pleasures I have is as I travel around the state into some of the regions where we're doing business and our members are doing business, is to see the revitalization in those local communities. And it's exciting to see. I mean, some of these are old coal towns or towns that have just lost their economic center, and they've been revitalized by the industry from a number of fronts. Pennsylvania, the United States this year is going to surpass both Saudi Arabia and Russia in the production of natural gas and oil. So you think about that and how it changes the economy in this country, not just the Commonwealth. It's an exciting play, and it's exciting what's going on.
Well, Dick Spiegelmeier is very fortunate to have you at the Marcellus Shale Coalition. And as he starts his new job, what's the best advice you're going to give him on this? He's familiar with the issue, but you have more Hill experience than he does. So what are you going to tell him?
Well, I think Dave and I are going to have a great relationship. I've known Dave for years and have worked well with him. I think we're excited to have him. As far as advice, I think it's just continue to plow ahead. I mean, we need to continue to move ahead as an industry. We need to continue to educate the policymakers in the Commonwealth, and Dave's going to be a great asset in helping us do that.
In the last minute, Jim, could you tell us about the fact a lot of these new discoveries and a lot of the new production is actually all being done on private land? We find that there's some restrictions regarding the feds have put restrictions on the use of federal public land, haven't they?
Yes, that is true. And I will tell you this, that the United States is such a unique country and we're such a free country. We're the only country that the landowner actually owns the mineral rights beneath it. Whereas other countries, the government owns the mineral rights. So for our industry, those relationships with the landowners become so important. And that's why you've seen over billions of dollars actually go in royalties to Pennsylvania landowners from the development of this natural gas. So, they say a rising tide lifts all boats. What we're seeing in Pennsylvania right now is that rising tide. And landowners, the environment, because it's the clean energy that's coming out of the gas, coming out of the ground, as well as just the jobs that are being created. This is an exciting time in Pennsylvania, an exciting time in this country. So
we're seeing an improving gas picture and an improving oil picture despite the policies, perhaps, of the federal government. And
I would agree.
Well, we thank you very much, Jim, for being on the show. Maura and I always enjoy speaking with you, and I know the viewers benefit a great deal from your expertise. We'd like to have you back soon.
My pleasure.
Okay, we'll be back next week with a new edition of Behind the Headlines. Maura and I will see you then, and who knows how Maura will change the set until next week. We'll see you then.